At 82, I've seen the world change in remarkable ways. I've laughed, loved, struggled, and grown. But there's one choice I made that continues to weigh on my heart: moving into a nursing home. At the time, it felt like the right move. My children reassured me I'd be safe, well cared for, and surrounded by community. But once I arrived, the truth revealed itself, subtly at first, then overwhelmingly. What I thought would be a gentle chapter in my later years turned into something far more isolating, routine, and disorienting than I ever imagined. If you're reconsidering a nursing home for yourself or someone you love, I urge you to pause. It's not just a change in location. It's a change in lifestyle, in identity, in how the world sees you, and how you begin to see yourself. In this video, I want to share 6 things I wish someone had told me before I packed my bags. These aren't just observations. They're life-altering truths that come only from living them. So before you take that step, or encourage someone else to, stay with me. You deserve to hear what I wish I had known. First, loss of purpose when I moved into the nursing home. I thought I was simply trading one roof for another. What I didn't realize was that I was leaving behind the very rhythm that gave my life meaning. Back in my house, I had purpose. I made my own coffee. I folded my own laundry. I watered the plants I'd nurtured for years. These small routines didn't just fill time. They gave my days a sense of direction. They reminded me I was still capable, still contributing in my own way. But in the nursing home, that quiet purpose faded. Meals appeared like clockwork, prepared by others. The bed was made before I even got a chance to reach for the sheets. My hands, once busy with simple tasks, began to rest more than they moved. At first, I told myself this was comfort, but eventually, comfort turned to emptiness. I met a man named Cole Harrison, 84, once a master woodworker. Back home, he spent hours in his shed, sanding, building, creating. Here, with no tools and no projects, he sat by the window each day, staring out as if waiting for something to do. One afternoon he told me, "It's strange, isn't it? Having all this time, and nothing to fill it with." I knew exactly what he meant. Purpose isn't about grand achievements. It's about feeling useful, even in the smallest ways. Without it, the mind dulls. The spark dims. I found myself waking up without reason, and that's a hollow kind of existence I wouldn't wish on anyone. For many of us, purpose was never about a job title or a paycheck. It was about being part of something, caring for a pet, tending a garden, making a family dinner. In a nursing home, those connections to usefulness can disappear quickly. And once they do, you start questioning why you're even here. If you or someone you love is thinking about making this move, I beg you to consider what gives your life meaning today. Is it painting, cooking, praying, caring for others? Ask yourself, will you still have access to those things once you move? Or will you trade them for quiet hallways and preset meal times? If I could go back, I would have found ways to hold onto my routines. I would have insisted on creating space for my own daily rituals, even if I needed help to do them. Because in the end, the loss of purpose doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in slowly, quietly, until one day, you realize you've stopped looking forward to tomorrow. Second, rapid decline in health. Before I entered the nursing home, I was doing fairly well for someone in their 80s. I wasn't climbing mountains, but I could walk around the block, make my own breakfast, and keep my body moving with little routines. Stretching in the morning, washing dishes, tidying up after myself. These small acts of daily movement kept me agile and grounded. I didn't think much of it at the time, but looking back, they were the glue holding my strength together. Once I moved into the facility, those activities were gently taken off my plate. Meals were brought to me, laundry was handled, and help was always just a button away. At first, it felt like a relief, a chance to rest after decades of doing everything myself, but that relief came with a hidden cost. The less I moved, the less I could move. My legs stiffened, my balance worsened. Standing up from a chair that used to feel effortless started to feel like climbing stairs with no railing. I wasn't alone. I saw the same pattern in others around me. Take Ava Mitchell, my neighbor down the hall. When she first arrived, she was spry, walking every day, insisting she'd keep herself moving no matter what. But slowly, that spark dimmed. First, she skipped her walks when it rained. Then she began using a walker, just in case. Within months, she was in a wheelchair. One afternoon, she looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "I feel like I aged 10 years in 4 months." The environment was designed for comfort, yes, but in many ways, it unintentionally discouraged physical activity. Ramps and elevators meant fewer steps. Meals delivered to rooms meant fewer reasons to walk. And the constant availability of help, while well-meaning, removed the need to do things yourself. But the truth is, when the body is no longer challenged, it begins to decline faster than you'd expect. Staying strong requires effort. It means walking even when you don't feel like it. It means lifting light objects just to keep your muscles working. It means stretching, standing, moving, even in small ways. But in a nursing home, those habits are easy to forget because no one pushes you to keep going. They only make sure you're safe, and safe, sadly, is not always the same as strong. If you're thinking of moving into a care facility, ask yourself, will you still find ways to move your body every day? Will someone remind you to stretch, to walk, to stay active? Or will the convenience quietly steal your strength? If I could go back, I would have been more intentional. I would have asked my family to help me stay in motion, to build routines that kept me accountable. Because once your body starts to slow, getting it back isn't just hard, it might be impossible. Third, loss of privacy and dignity. One of the things I never truly considered before entering the nursing home was just how much of my privacy I'd have to give up. At home, I had space. I had silence. I could close my door, take a long bath, or sit quietly with my thoughts whenever I wanted. No one needed to know what I was doing or when. I had control over my environment, and in that control, I felt human, dignified, and free. But that sense of autonomy faded quickly once I arrived. From day one, I was surrounded by people, well-meaning staff, busy aides, other residents, and the simple act of being alone became rare. Room checks happened routinely. Someone might knock, but they didn't always wait for me to answer. Helpers would enter my room to assist with medications, laundry, or bathroom routines, sometimes without asking if it was a good time. And when it came to daily care, things got even more personal. Getting dressed, taking a shower, using the restroom, tasks I had managed privately for over 8 decades now often required help. I knew the caregivers were doing their jobs, but every time I had to wait for someone to assist me with something I used to do myself, I felt a little piece of my dignity slip away. Then there was the issue of space, specifically shared space. I was fortunate to have a kind roommate named Ruby Lane, but not everyone was so lucky. I heard stories of roommates who snored loudly, had cognitive impairments that led to confusion or aggression, or simply didn't mesh well. And even when your roommate is kind, there's still no escaping the fact that you share your bedroom, your last sanctuary, with a stranger. Privacy in a nursing home becomes something you negotiate for, not something you can expect. And dignity. It gets tested in subtle but painful ways. When staff rush your bath, when your preferences are ignored at mealtime, when you're respoken to in a tone usually reserved for children. I remember once asking if I could skip dinner because I wasn't feeling well. The nurse said, "We have to keep you on schedule, sweetheart." That word, sweetheart, made me feel invisible. Like I had suddenly become a patient number, rather than a person with opinions, moods, and a voice. If you're reweighing the decision to move into a nursing home, ask yourself this: are you ready to give up the small boundaries that made your life feel truly yours? Because once they're gone, it's not just about space, it's about how you see yourself. And dignity, once chipped away piece by piece, is incredibly hard to reclaim. Fourth, feeling forgotten by loved ones. When I first moved into the nursing home, my family promised I wouldn't feel alone. They meant it. They truly did. My daughter, Lily Morgan, came by every Sunday. My grandson dropped in after school with stories from his day. For a while, it felt manageable. I missed my home, but I still felt tethered to the world I'd known. My people, my memories, my place in their lives. But as weeks turned into months, those visits became less frequent. Phone calls replaced in-person conversations. Messages were short, rushed, filled with, "Sorry, been so busy." I understood. Of course, life doesn't stop for anyone. But as the rhythm of their lives picked up, the silence on my end grew louder. The days started to blur together, each one marked not by the joy of connection, but by the absence of it. Holidays were the hardest. Plans would be made, then canceled. I'd sit in the common room, watching the front door, hoping this would be the day someone surprised me. Sometimes I saw my fellow residents do the same, gazing at that door as if willing someone to walk through it. We rarely said it out loud, but we all knew. Being forgotten doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, gently, in the quiet spaces between visits. It's not that my family stopped loving me. They just assumed I was okay, that I was adjusting, that I didn't need them as much. But what people don't understand is that the longer you're out of sight, the easier it is to become out of mind. One night, I sat in my room with my phone in hand, staring at my son's name on the screen. I wanted to call. I wanted to hear his voice. But something inside me whispered, "Don't bother him, he's busy." And that was the moment it hit me. I had begun shrinking my own needs to avoid being a burden. In a nursing home, the walls are close, and the world outside feels far away. The people you love are still living, but you're no longer living with them. You're rewatching from a distance, hoping they remember to look back. If you're thinking about this move, for yourself or someone you love, ask yourself, how will you stay connected? Because even the strongest bonds need tending. And once the visits fade and the calls slow down, loneliness doesn't knock. It simply walks in and makes itself at home. Fifth, loss of personal independence. Before I moved into the nursing home, my life was built around small freedoms, the kind you don't even realize matter until they're gone. I chose when to wake up, when to eat, what to wear, and how to spend my day. If I felt like baking a pie at 9 p.m. or going for a walk at sunrise, I could. These weren't grand acts of rebellion. They were my routines, my choices, the tiny decisions that reminded me I was still in control of my own life. But once I entered the facility, those choices started disappearing, quietly, systematically. Breakfast was served at a fixed time. Lights out happened, whether I was ready to sleep or not. If I wanted to step outside for fresh air, I had to wait for someone to be available to assist me. Even what I wore or ate was often decided for me, not with bad intentions, but out of efficiency. I still remember my first morning there. I woke up early, reached for the book I had been reading every night before bed back home, and realized it wasn't there. Neither was my favorite chair. The room was sterile, impersonal, and filled with things chosen by someone else. That moment, the quiet realization that I was no longer in my own space, hit harder than I expected. Independence isn't just about living alone. It's about autonomy. It's about knowing that your time is yours. In the nursing home, my time belonged to the system. Every hour was accounted for. Every activity was scheduled. And slowly, I stopped pushing back. I stopped asking to eat later. I stopped requesting time alone. I adapted, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. There's a kind of emotional erosion that happens when you no longer get to make basic decisions. You don't notice it right away, but it builds. You begin to lose the confidence to speak up. You start to believe that your preferences are inconveniences. And eventually, you stop feeling like the main character in your life. I watched it happen not just to me, but to others. Ivy Adams, a former schoolteacher, once fiercely independent, began hesitating to ask for help. "I don't want to be difficult," she'd say with a soft smile. But inside, I knew she felt the same as I did, like her voice was getting smaller in a place that didn't always listen. So if you're considering a nursing home, pause and ask yourself, are you prepared to surrender the everyday freedoms that define who you are? Because once they're gone, they're hard to reclaim, and you may find yourself missing them more than you ever thought possible. Sixth, leaving a nursing home is harder than you think. When I first moved into the nursing home, I told myself it was just temporary, a trial period. If it didn't feel right, I could always leave. That sense of control gave me comfort, like I still had a say in how my story would unfold. But what I didn't realize then was how quickly temporary becomes permanent, and how difficult it is to reverse a decision once the world around you starts shifting. At first, everything felt manageable. I missed my home, yes, but I told myself it was still there, waiting for me. But as time passed, my house became harder to maintain from a distance. My children, thinking they were helping, started donating items, rearranging things, and even talked about renting it out. When I finally told them I wanted to go back, they hesitated. "Are you sure you can manage on your own? Wouldn't it be safer to stay?" And then came the physical changes. Without realizing it, my body had softened. Tasks that once felt routine, climbing stairs, carrying groceries, even locking the door at night, now seemed daunting. My strength, both physical and emotional, had faded. The longer I stayed in the nursing home, the more it shaped me, and the less I felt equipped to live outside of it. I wasn't the only one. I met others who had arrived just like me, telling themselves this was a stepping stone, not a destination. One man, Jack Sullivan, had moved in after a surgery, swearing he'd return to his home within 3 months. A year later, he was still there. I waited too long. He admitted one morning, "No, I don't even know what I'd do if I went back. There are financial barriers too. Nursing home care isn't cheap, and the longer you stay, the more it drains your savings. Some sell their homes to cover the cost. Others give up control of finances to family. Before long, the possibility of leaving becomes less about choice and more about feasibility. That's the part no one warns you about. Once you enter, the exit becomes narrower, not just because of logistics, but because of how much you've changed while inside. You adapt to the system, and stepping outside of it starts to feel foreign, even frightening. So before you take that step, ask yourself, is this truly where I need to be? Or is it just what feels easiest right now? Because once you re-in, getting out isn't just about packing your bags. It's about reclaiming a life you may have slowly started to let go of, without even realizing it. Looking back, I don't regret growing old. Aging has brought me wisdom, clarity, and appreciation for life's simplest joys. But I do regret believing that a nursing home was my only path forward. I walked in expecting comfort, safety, and a sense of ease. What I didn't anticipate was how much I'd have to give up in exchange. I lost more than just a home. I lost my routines, my choices, my privacy, my independence. I watched my health decline faster than expected and felt my purpose slip away in the quiet spaces of daily care. Most of all, I realized how hard it is to leave once you've settled in, both physically and emotionally. Does this mean all nursing homes are bad? Not at all. For some, they're necessary, even life-saving. But I believe the decision to enter one should come after deep reflection, not out of pressure, fear, or convenience. If I could go back, I would have asked for more in-home help. I would have fought harder to stay in my own space. I would have looked for ways to adapt my life, without surrendering it. So if you're facing this decision, or helping someone who is, I urge you, don't just ask what's easiest. Ask what truly preserves your dignity, purpose, and freedom. Because those things, once gone, are harder to get back than you think.